Well, a very good evening. Welcome to the Sportsman and the Last Tackle. Plenty of rugby league to talk about this evening, and alongside me to talk about it, Adrian Morley and Andrew Henderson. Gents, thank you for joining us. As I mentioned there, a lot to get through. Obviously, England in action, men and women's at the weekend. Moz, I know you loved playing for England every time you got to pull the jersey on. What did we learn from those two? Both teams 64-0 wins, but let's talk about the men first. What did we learn from that?
Well, I thought it was a very clinical and professional performance by the English team, and I think it's really important that the England team get together mid-season, regardless of the opposition. I think it's important they spend time in each other's company. Shaun Wane gets to know the players get to know how Shaun Wane operates, and there was a number of debutants, which is great for England, not just now but for the future. It was great as a standalone test, but I think Shaun Wane's got his eyes on the World Cup in 2025. This is vital preparation for that tournament. So I think it was great, and I thought the boys performed really well. You could argue the opposition wasn't up to standard really, but you can only play against what's in front of you. And at times, there was patches where France performed really well, but I just think England were that dominant. That's what dictated the scoreline, 64-0. So I think Shaun Wane will be very pleased with the scoring that amount of points, but also keeping France to 0. They were a lot more competitive in the World Cup. It was a very close game at Bolton there in the quarter-final. They weren't up to that level at the weekend, but I think Shaun Wane will be delighted with a run-out.
Yeah, a few comments across social media, a bit disappointing, perhaps inevitable. So people saying that the game was a waste of time, that the score didn't benefit anyone, that England didn't have proper opposition. Yeah. The only sport in the world, by the way, where the national team winning 64-0 is somehow an issue. I would imagine if you asked Shaun Wane if that game was a waste of time, or Matty Ashton if his England debut was a waste of time, or Tyler Dupree, that they'd have very different answers. And there's going to come a point, Hendo, you'll know this as a head coach, down the line where Shaun Wane is picking teams for Test series, for World Cups, and having spent that time with Tyler Dupree, Jez Litton, that list of debutants going on is going to come in invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm a little bit along the lines of what Moz was saying. It's a really irrelevant, the stand of the opposition that they're up against. This was an opportunity for the head coach of England, as we spoke about. Everything they do now, preparation-wise, is now building up to a successful World Cup in 2025. Okay, so they've got that period of time, 23, 24, a couple of years now to really start to prep leading into that competition and to try and build some combinations and get some continuity within the group. But also for Shaun, he'll know too, there'll be probably a couple of players that'll be dropping out of that England side from that last World Cup campaign, and you've got to start to blood the next generation of players coming through. So we could argue that team that we saw, play against France on the weekend, was quite a youthful-looking side, certainly a side that's in its early stages of development. But again, for Shaun, it was a great opportunity to see some of those players and could they handle the pressure of International Rugby League? Because we've seen that before, and Moz will probably attest to this, that you see so many players that can play really well at club level, but for some reason when it comes to international, they just don't seem to produce the same level of form, or they just can't sort of step up to that next level. And I thought we saw plenty of encouraging signs from England on that performance against France. I thought George Williams was magnificent. I thought some of his contributions were telling. Obviously he scored a hat-trick himself, but the involvement that he had and the partnership he had with young Harry Smith too, who, by the way, I think is really growing as a player in the Super League for Wigan, and he comes in and he didn't look out of place at that level either. So I think England will look at that and go, yes, it was a comprehensive victory. Were they really genuinely tested? No. But I think some of the signs of quality, execution, ability and talent that we saw on display, certainly would be exciting moves as a head coach if I was coaching England, that's for sure.
And I think,
so just on George Williams, you say some players step up from club level to international level. Some players step up from just being a general soldier, and when they get asked to captain a side, they grow another level. And hopefully this will be George Williams' time to shine, not just in the games against the French, but for the future and for the World Cup. I agree with you. I thought it was outstanding.
And I think it's worth mentioning as well, you've both rightfully mentioned, we're of course taking a long look at a World Cup in 2.5 years' time, 2025. If you look at the preparation that Shaun Wane had as England coach for the last World Cup, which was completely disrupted, took the job in 2020, straight into the pandemic, didn't get the Ashes series he was promised. I think they got 3 games maybe before the World Cup opener. For him to have the luxury of being able to play France in April and then a 3-match test series against Tonga, potentially the same again next year going into a World Cup. Yeah. This is surely exactly what he needs, right?
Yeah, I agree. And what the other good positive thing is obviously for Sean, because he's probably had to battle this in the past when he's tried to get these mid-season international games on, that, there's club games being played around it. So it was great that there was nothing going on in clubland. So the full focus and attention was on England and getting that preparation right. And that's the whole point of having this mid-season international. It's an opportunity for Sean to have a look at some different players, because we know that the players playing in the NRL aren't going to be released to come over for this fixture mid-season. So it's a great opportunity to have a look at some other talent that potentially may force their way into the side at the back end with the test series coming up. You know what I mean? It also gives an opportunity for them to get used to, what a camp looks like, what it feels like, what that sort of experience is. So again, it's all prepping him for the back end of the year after all the finals are played, when we come into that international test series, which you'll allude to in a second there, Lewis. And it's having that prep ready for that. So then when you come to the back end of the year, there's nobody sort of thinking, well, what does it look like? What does it feel like? Well, they've had that bit of experience together mid-season, So I think it's definitely a worthwhile exercise. It's something that we do need to retain moving forward. I'm all in favour of the international mid-season window.
We've spoken about George Williams. We've mentioned Harry Smith. Moz, anyone else, particularly amongst those younger debutants that stood out for you?
Well, I'm a big Tyler debrief fan. I actually coached him when he was a junior at Leeds, and we nearly lost him to the game. A few years ago, he was contemplating joining the army. His route to Super League wasn't the traditional one. He got an opportunity at Salford, took it with both hands. It's been outstanding for Salford this season. I was delighted he got in the squad, and for him to actually play, for the England first team was fantastic for Tyler. And I thought he did a great job. He come off the bench and he was really hard to stop. And going back to the experience that he'll gain from that is fantastic. It's a great story. Nearly lost such a talented lad. And he's not only starring in Super League, he's playing for his country, so I'd say Tyler.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Moz. And what I also like too is a lot of these, even though they were younger players, they're in form in Super League. So I think that was a credit to the head coach. He's picking players that are playing well week in, week out in the Super League competition. So for me, deserve to be there on merit as well.
Just on Tyler Dupree, I was privileged enough a couple of years ago to present him with the Championship Young Player of the Year award. We went round to his house, did some filming with him. You couldn't meet a more humble, nice, just feet on the ground guy, and what he's doing at Salford, absolutely fantastic. Women's team also in action, 64-0 win before the men went on to win by the same scoreline. Real step forward, I thought, performance from them from what we saw at the World Cup. And Hendo, obviously head coach of York, the men's side at York, but a host of York Valkyrie players in that women's team. Yep. How good is that for the club and the city to be producing internationals at such a rate?
Oh, it's fantastic. But we're very, very proud as a club that we have I suppose, present the opportunity for women to play the great game and represent York, albeit we've obviously under the guise of 2 different names, York Knights being the men's team, York Valkyrie being the women's team. But we're very, very proud that we present those opportunities for young women to come through the junior system that we've got in place now, but also to represent the club at first team level. And to see now that we've got, I think we had 7 of our Valkyrie players that made that England squad. It's fantastic. It's great kudos for the club for all the good work that's been going on there, but also to have that level of player playing at club level week in, week out, but then getting the opportunity to represent England in the fashion that they are is fantastic.
And Moz, we've mentioned it a couple of times on this show this year. There was an international doubleheader roughly a similar time last year at the same ground. I thought we saw the impact of the World Cup on Saturday when you saw just how many more people were in the ground for that opening game, the women's game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually went to the game over there in Warrington. It was great. The atmosphere was great. But just both teams, I think they've took a lot of confidence from the World Cup and they were both comprehensive victories. But I think the women's team is the fastest growing facet of our game in general. So great that these young girls and ladies get an opportunity to look at their heroes and seeing just how well they're doing internationally. And we're all building, we've mentioned it before, we're all building for the 2025 World Cup, but the women's game is in a great place at the moment, and that showcased that on Saturday.
Well, a first look at two of our England teams then since the World Cup, and we'll be seeing plenty more of the men in the autumn when they take on Tonga. Yeah, 3-match test series in the autumn. Can't wait for this one. And Moz, no disrespect to Australian or New Zealand Rugby League, but one of the exciting things about this is that this is the first time that really we've got a test series against a nation that isn't one of those traditional powerhouses, and it's a genuine test series. Yeah,
and if you look at Tonga's form over the last few years, they've got some big scalps under the belt. You know, they've beat the Kangaroos, they beat New Zealand, they beat Great Britain, and you know, they competed very, very well at the World Cup last year. So they are one of the powerhouses of rugby league at the moment, along with Samoa. And it's great that we're getting these, you know, other teams, you know, not just the traditional big three. So for them to come over, there'll be a lot sterner test than France, and it's a genuine. It's going to be a genuine test series. So we'll learn a lot about the English boys against these. You know, a lot of the players are going to be NRL based, and I can't wait. You know, very, very exciting. You know, the Tonga will bring a lot of their tradition, and you know, the game last year was my favourite game in the World Cup when Samoa played Tonga. It was absolutely fantastic. The build-up was great. All the tradition was great, and the game, you know, didn't fail to deliver. So I can't wait for this series. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, Hendo, obviously Samoa making the men's final at the World Cup. Tonga, since that 2017 World Cup, have been on a real upward trajectory. Great. Every time we get these top-tier quality internationals, the bar just seems to go up a little bit more. And with that World Cup on the horizon in 2025, that's just exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, again, this is another great test for England. You know, they come out against a nation now that is what I class now as almost a developed rugby league nation. You know, they're competing and beating the best in the world. So, and they've got an abundance of talent. You know, and I'm a bit like Moz. I'm really excited about this test series because it feels different. It's something different, you know. It's going to be a nation that hasn't travelled to these shores for too often in the past to play at this level consistently. So it feels a bit different. The new team come over, some new players to be exposed to for our fan base over here, and it'll be a great test as well for our England side. So I think it ticks a lot of boxes. We know there's a strong Tongan rugby league community here in the UK as well, which will come out in full force and support. They'll bring plenty of colour, plenty of atmosphere. Some fantastic, heritage and traditional stuff as well that'll come along the way. So I just think it's another great opportunity. I think, again, well done to the International Federation for arranging this contest, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great. Yeah, that test series, just another ingredient into what has already been an enthralling rugby league season, and it promises so much more. We'll be with you every step of the way right here on the Sportsman Rugby League.
You're watching the Sportsman Rugby League,
the home of Betfred Super League Online.
Tune in to Last Tackle every Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, we'll be with you every Wednesday here on the Last Tackle. We've got live games, of course, throughout the season. So much to look forward to. Old Trafford, of course, Wembley, that test series, as we've mentioned. But in a month's time, Rugby League is descending on the toon. Magic Weekend is here.
Make this Magic Weekend one to remember.
Oh my word, what a try!
6 Betfred Super League games at St James's Park on the 3rd and 4th of June. Out of your seat action, last minute drama and a party atmosphere. Magic Weekend has it all. Tickets start at just £25 for adults and £12.50 for juniors.
Yeah, can't wait for Magic Weekend. Always a brilliant couple of days over in Newcastle, but plenty of Betfred Super League action to go in between now and then. Starting off this week, Hull FC versus Wigan Warriors. Moz, Hull FC back in the winner's circle last time out. In some respects, the international break probably came at the wrong time for them because they'd have wanted to get straight back in after that win against the Wigan team that have been going very well.
Yeah, you're right. And Tony Smith he's got his hands full there with the Hull side, but they did get back to winning ways, as you've quite rightly said. The weekend off, would have done them as would have all the teams, not just Hull, but the players of the world are good. But Wigan are the form team of Super League at the moment. They're just going about the business. They went over to Warrington not long ago and got a fantastic victory there. And I just think, the way we're going to go in, we're going to go over there and get the 2 points. But, Tony Smith, being coached by him, he's not that bothered about results. His performance he's bothered about. And, if you get to a performance where you're happy with and you don't quite get the win, he's happy to build and build and build. And as long as Hull put a strong performance in, I think he'll be reasonably happy. But I can't see, Wigan slipping up in this one.
FC will be boosted by Jay Truman coming into the side for the first time this season. Hendo, on the other side, you touched on Harry Smith in an England shirt. His confidence will be sky high. It's his 100th career appearance, should he play at the weekend, which seems to have flown by. But he is at the core of a Wigan team that is really becoming a force in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Wigan are in a good place at the moment. I think, like you said, I don't think they've peaked yet. I don't think they've peaked. I think Bevan French is doing a great job too since he's gone back to that fullback role. He's been tremendous. But Harry Smith has been very, very good. I just think the progression he has made in the last 12 months, I just think has been phenomenal. The confidence that he's now got, his execution has improved. He's looking like more of an all-round Super League halfback who's now been given the opportunity to step up into the international team recently, and deservedly so. So, no, I agree with you. I think he's got his best years ahead of him still to come, but he's doing a tremendous job for Wigan at the moment and for Matty Pete at the moment. Like you said, hopefully he can mark his 100th career appearance with a good performance and a result against Hull FC. Can
you see Hull FC upsetting the apple cart?
I can't at the moment. I'll be honest. I can't. I think we've seen, haven't we, in the press where there's been a number of the Hull FC first team players have been made to play reserve grade recently or been put into that position. I know there's some paper talk around some players being offered out now to other clubs. So clearly Tony Smith is now starting to put the broom through the place and starting to make some what he feels are needed changes. He's obviously got the support and backing of Adam Pearson to do so. I'm probably with Moz. I think we may. When the coach is doing that and he's making those changes, what he believes for the better of the group, I do think we'll see an upsurge in performance, because what I'm saying, the players who are genuinely there for the right reasons and want this team to do well and club to do well, they'll lift off that. Whether it's going to be enough to get a result against a very much informed Wigan side, I'm not too sure, but I do feel we'll see an improved performance from Hull FC this week.
Friday night, Catalans versus St Helens. Good game this, Moz. Really interesting, this one, isn't it?
It is. Saints have, you could argue, they've been a little bit up and down this year, but they had a really strong performance against their Warrington Wolves again last time out. So they'll be confidence will be high. Always a tough place to go though, Catalan Dragons, but they've been, they have had a few injury issues, Catalan Dragons, but. When the current Super League champions come to town, it's if you can't go for that game, you can't go for any game. So it's going to be a great contest, as it normally is against these two. These two are genuine powerhouses of the Super League, and met in a grand final not so long ago. And it's going to be a great game, and I'm looking forward to this one.
One of the biggest compliments I can give Catalans in recent years, Hendo, is that they stick around even when they're perhaps not hitting their straps in terms of performance. They're still hanging around with wins and keeping hold of league positions. That's not always been something we've said about Catalans in their time in Super League.
No, I agree with you. I think in the early stages of the Catalan Dragons they were generally pretty good at home but struggled on the road. I think they've adapted that now. You know what I mean? I think as we've seen, certainly in recent years, they've become a very, very hard team to beat, home or away. What I do admire at the moment, and Moz touched on it before, about they've got a number of injuries at the moment, Catalans. I think there was only a few weeks ago, I think they had they're missing 7 of their like mainstay players, and they had a lot of French players playing, and they really pushed Warrington to the brink. Who were at the time Warrington with the informed side, undefeated. So I think there's been plenty of encouraging signs this season already from Catalans. I don't think they have hit their straps yet, as Moz highlighted before, but I do think that's probably because they've had a little bit of disruption with injuries, especially to key personnel. But I think we've seen what excites me is an emergence of French talent, which are holding their own at this level and still sort of upholding the standards of the Catalan Dragons and what they sort of expect of each other. So I think this is going to be a great contest because you've got Saints form has been a little bit indifferent. You could argue Catalans to a degree as well. Both will be desperate for the 2 points. I think it makes for a real exciting contest this weekend.
There's a milestone coming up in this game. James Roby, should he play, will equal the all-time St Helens appearance tally with Cal Coslett. It will be his 531st game for the club. Moz,
Incredible.
We're running out.
That's
running out of things to say.
Yeah,
at this point, aren't we?
just Superman. That's all you can say. My old mate Robes he's been incredible. One of them, if not the best player of the Super League era, and I'm delighted for him if he does play to get to that milestone. He deserves all the accolades he can get. And has he decided if he's playing on next year or not? Do we know?
I think officially he's saying no, but he was saying no for a lot of last year as well.
Oh,
so
right.
we'll believe it when we see it.
The way he's playing, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes round again, but he's still playing, up to an incredible level now, and fair play, take me off to him.
And perhaps the most incredible thing is that he's still doing big minutes, and he's playing a position you'll know all too well.
Yeah.
Hendo. He touches the ball more than anyone, and he's never been it, and he isn't just a follow and pass dummy half, is he? He's all action.
Yeah, he is. He's a genuine run threat. He's a genuine pass threat. He's even got a little short kicking game as well in his locker. So, and he's a competitor. You know what I mean? He competes. Defensively. He's always out there. Putting on pressure. Getting his body in front. He's not afraid to get stuck in defensively either. He's just a world class player. Like, you just can't say any more than that. And it's just brilliant to see a man of his age not only competing but still delivering a very high level of performance in the elite competition. It is incredible. It really is. And he's breaking milestones left, right, and centre, isn't he? Every year. But again, he is still up there as one of the best players in this competition. You can't deny that. He's just integral to that Saints team, isn't he? And it's going to be the day he does decide to hang up those boots. It's going to be a really big hole, that's going to be left in that Saints team, because I don't know whether we'll see another talent like that again for a number of years, because they don't come around often, do they? Players of that sort of calibre. He's an enigma. He really is.
Just really quickly, gents, Catalans, St Helens, Moz prediction.
I think Saints. I think Big Alex possibly could be back for this game, and in my opinion is the best prop in Super League. If he does come back, it'll be a massive boost for the Saints, massive boost for England Rugby League as well. So I can think Saints will go over there and get the win.
Hendo?
Yeah, I'm gonna back Saints as well. I think they may have just turned a corner slightly there with that win against Warrington. I think that'll just give them a little bit of a boost that they probably needed, and just a bit of reassurance that we are a good team. And I think, like you said, with the big fella possibly coming back and one or two others, I think they may just have enough to get the job done.
Up next, here's a head scratcher: Hull Kingston Rovers against Huddersfield Giants. Potentially, you could argue that the overachievers against the underachievers so far this season. Really interesting game.
Yeah, really interesting. I'd agree with you there, but I feel Huddersfield, they have been getting the losses, but only by two points, 4 points here and there. So it's been very, very close. They competed very well, and you're totally right. Ulkiar have been fantastic this year, and the coach will argue they're not overachievers. That's how we train, and that's how we've got deserved what we've got this season. But this is the toughest game to pick out the full round, in my opinion. So I'm still on the fence at the moment, but I just think Hull KR, just because they've got the form and the momentum, and it's at home, and I just think when you are playing with confidence, it's a lot different to Huddersfield, who could potentially have an effect. Even though they're only losing by 2 points, it's still a loss at the end of the day. So I just think the way Hull KR are going, they might sneak it, but it's going to be a close one.
Yeah, Huddersfield, a bit of a bogey team for KR. They've won 9 out of the last 10, so they had the rub of this fixture. But Hendo, this is just, as Moz has said, a very difficult one to call, because we know Huddersfield have got it in their locker. We know that there is a team in there, and it might just take one game, one good performance for that all to click.
Absolutely. Well, we know they've got quality in their ranks, and as Moz said, their performances have been okay. They're just lacking that bit of quality at the back end, aren't they? They're just lacking that finishing touch. They just haven't quite got that finishing touch at the moment to their game. Like, they're doing a lot of good things, but they're also probably doing a lot of things too. They're either inviting teams back into contests, or they're not doing enough to close them out or get across the line when it's needed. So, yeah, their form's certainly indifferent at the moment. But as you said, they've got the rub of the green against this opposition in the past, previous meetings. So they probably know how to beat this side, but it's executing it, and I think that's the trouble. I think it makes for a really interesting game for one or two reasons. Huddersfield need this win, really, for me to get their season. They need it, and they're going to have some desperation about it this week. But on the flip side, Hull Kingston Rovers, I think if they get the win here, that really sets their season up, if that makes sense, because I think it could go one or two ways. If Huddersfield come away with a really good performance, a good result, that just might create a little bit of doubt in that Hull KR mind that actually, are we as good as where we think we are? Does that make sense? And it could just derail them a little bit. But on the flip side, if Hull KR come out and do a really good job against a good Huddersfield side, that could almost give them that confidence, that belief that actually, do you know what? Yeah, we're going somewhere this year. Like, it can just, the mindset can just shift slightly by the outcome of this game. So I think it's a really important game for those two reasons.
Friday night, Heading Leeds and Adrian Morley derby, Leeds versus Salford. Moz, we've not always said this, but you might be going into this game on Friday with your confident enough to have your red jersey on under your top rather than your Leeds one.
Yeah. I'm going to this game. I'm actually doing the radio for this game, but two of my old clubs. But it's it's another compelling fixture. Both teams have Leeds have been a bit inconsistent, but Salford have been very, very well. They've been going about their business. They have had injury problems, as every club. I can't just single Salford out. But the way they've been getting the results, I think they'll go there very, very confident, Salford. So it should be a good game. It's always a great atmosphere there at Headingley Stadium. I love going back to Headingley. So I think Salford have got a great chance, but it's going to be tough. But I think they might just scrape the win, Salford.
Feels at the moment, Hendo, if you played this game 10 times, both sides might win 5, which is exactly what we want, by the way. I agree. People watching this competition, it's that outstanding situation to be in. You spoke about the win being more important perhaps for Huddersfield in that last game. We probably make the same argument for Leeds here.
I don't disagree. Again, I'm with you. It's a really tough one to call, this one. I think it all comes down. The way when I've watched Leeds, they like to play flat and fast. They like tempo, you know what I mean? And then they can move it. They don't play, I wouldn't say they play a traditional structured sort of game plan. I think it's very much they try and generate quick ruck speed, and then they either stay there and try and work you over there, or they'll shift it, they'll offload, they'll ask a number of questions in a different type of way, but they need to create that ruck speed. So the challenge for this weekend for me is if Salford can defensively around that ruck, win those collisions, really get their in-tackle management right, and really stop any sort of momentum there for Leeds, I think they go a long way to winning the game. However, I think if Leeds are able to generate that ruck speed they desire, they've got some great strikes, some great pace as well, and I think they'll cause Salford some problems. So it's going to make for an interesting contest. But again, it'll be all down to that start for me. I think Leeds will want to come out and really start fast, and try and lift the tempo early, and then challenge Salford that way. I think Leeds are going to nick it. I'm going to go a little bit against Moz on this one. I think it's going to be a tight contest, but I think it'll be Leeds that's going to nick this one.
Yeah, really interesting game, that one. They all are this week. Moving on to Leigh Leopards versus Castleford Tigers. You have to go back to 1987 for the last time that Leigh beat Cass. Stone's Bitter Championship, it was 22-18 on that occasion. But Moz, I would suggest that Leigh go into this one as favourites slightly, with their best chance of beating Cass probably since 1987.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the fact that it's at home soil, they've had some great performances there at Leigh, and who'd have thought, the first year back in Super League, they're going to come into any fixture as favourites, and they're certainly favourites for this game. Castleford have only got 2 wins under the belt, but I think Leigh have been a breath of fresh air in the Super League. Everyone tipped them to go up straight down as clubs generally do in the Super League, but they've cemented the place in mid-table, and I think Leigh are going to be too strong for Castleford. But I mentioned it the other week. Derek Beaumont's done a fantastic job there at Leigh. Not only has he got them into Super League, he's invested in the squad. Very, very healthy squad, but the game day experience, the razzmatazz there at the Leigh Sports Village is the best in the league. That's including all the regular Super League teams. So fair play to Derek, and I think Leigh are going to get the win on Friday.
Hendo, you watched a lot of Leigh last year, of course, involved in the Championship coverage with Viaplay. You're probably one of the people least surprised about what's happening there.
Yep.
On the flip side, are you surprised about what's happened at Cass in the first 3 months of this season? Andy Last now got the job on a permanent basis. He's still got a lot on his hands, hasn't he?
He certainly does. It hasn't been the best start for the Tigers in Super League this season. Obviously, the success story is the Leigh Leopards. I think the way they went about their business last year, what I liked about them was the team that they had at the start of the year. It just evolved as the year went on, as they sort of probably started picking up those early wins and knew that they were gaining some momentum. I thought the chairman obviously sat down with Chris Chester and Adrian Lamb, and some of the players and the quality of play that they brought in sort of mid-season, back in the season, everything was all designed to make sure that when they got to Super League, they were going to have a team that was going to be able to compete and stay in Super League. And so far, based on that evidence, we're seeing that, aren't we? You know what I mean? Because they've been nothing but more than competitive so far, playing a great brand of rugby league. I think they're going to be too strong for Castleford at home. On the flip side, for the Tigers, they brought in a couple of signings, obviously in the close season, which I thought excited some of the fan base there. But I do think they had a disrupted pre-season by all accounts. I think Lee Radford at times was not always present, what I've been told, you know what I mean? So I think that has disrupted the campaign a little bit through the pre-season. They've not probably had that continuity that they wanted. Then I think the fact that Leigh decided to make it known to the board that he wasn't going to be here beyond this year, and they made the decision to move Leigh on, again has created disruption and a little bit of chaos, is what I say. So I just think they're very unsettled at the moment. And again, obviously Andy Last, I think, was running as the interim there for a number of weeks. Again, a lot of disruption. It's unsettled. Which way are we going? Where are? And players are probably thinking, where do we stand? They don't know. Now Andy's been given the job. I'm hopeful that now he can actually genuinely put his stamp on it. And try and obviously turn this season around for the Tigers. It's not all doom and gloom from at the moment. There's plenty of games to go, but it would all start well, wouldn't it, if they could go to Leigh this week and get off to a decent start and get a result there. But I think they're going to have their work cut out from this weekend. I really do.
So moving on to the last game of the weekend, or the last game on our list, Warrington Wolves versus Wakefield. Moz, look, if this was boxing, we'd be looking at this game, we'd be pre-booking our taxi home for somewhere in the second round, wouldn't we? Let's be honest. But the flip side of that is that if you're going to do it tough, which Wakefield are, you might as well go to where it's going to be the toughest and try and pull together and get a result.
Yeah, well, they've been defending, you could argue the bottom of the table and they're not going to win, but they've been defending well. It's just, I think they're just lacking a few ideas on attack. But Warrington will be hurting from the back-to-back losses, and it's at home. It's at the Hallowell Jones there, so I think Warrington will be fired up for this one. They want to get back to winning ways, and they'll see, Wakefield as cannon fodder really. But it's up to Wakefield there to get there and put the best foot forward and compete as well as they can. But I think Warrington are going to win and win quite convincingly, really. Judging by the way the season's gone. But yeah, Wakefield have signed our old mate Luke Gale. He's tried and tested in Super League, former man of steel, and he'll add value to any team really, but certainly Wakefield do need a bit of help at the moment, so hopefully he can generally steer the ship round the park and give them a bit more in attack.
Yeah, that is obviously the big news this week. Luke Gale signing for Wakefield after a brief spell at Keighley. And Moz mentioned the attacking problems that Wakefield have been having. could Luke be the key with all that experience, all that understanding to just add a little bit of not just creativity, but a little bit of kind of street smarts and guidance into that as well?
I don't disagree with that, Lewis. Whether he's going to be enough to, post loads of points, it's going to be enough for him to win games, I don't know. You'd like to think that they will improve with Luke in the side, I think, because what he will bring is, he's an organiser, he's a general, he'll be able to sort of tell people where they need to be going and what they need to be doing. He's got a strong kicking game, and he can obviously, his pass selection's pretty good as well. So if they get into some decent field position, he hopefully will have the nous to either play short, play long, play out the back, those type of things. But the other flip side as well is what might also go a little bit against him though, if he's the main sort of pivotal player, teams will obviously defend accordingly, to try and shut that out as well. So it may not be as easy as going, well, Luke Gale's in the team and he's going to be able to create all this stuff for us. So he still needs a platform to play off. He still needs a middle unit that's going to generate a little bit of ruck speed so he can play over the ad line and play, and take it to the opposition defensive line. So, and obviously in the right field position as well. So there's a number of factors that are going to be needed to help Luke assert himself on a game the way that obviously the Wakefield fans will want him to, but I don't disagree with Moz in saying that he will add some value to that team, just with his professionalism, his talk, his kicking game, and like you said, some of his street smarts as well. Whether it'll be enough to get a result at Warrington, I'm not so sure. One positive thing for Wakefield, they won the last 4 games against Warrington. So that's something they can kind of draw on. They have unlocked Warrington in the past, and there's a number of players still in that Wakefield team that have been there when they have beaten Warrington recently. So they can maybe try and draw on a little bit of that as well. Yeah,
it'll be interesting. Luke's got a big job in his hands, but who knows? This is the beauty of sport, and this sport in particular, isn't it? Hendo, it'd be amiss to have you on the show and not talk about York and the Championship and what you're doing over there.
Thanks, mate.
From the perspective of someone who's in the thick of that Betfred Championship League, what's it like? Because from the outside looking in this year, it just looks brutal.
Yeah, I don't know about brutal, but it's definitely a very competitive league. There's no doubt about it. It's exciting because each week I think every team goes into a game, whether they're home or away, believing they can win. And I think the results have proven that. We've seen some results. You look at it in the week and go, how's that happened? How have they beat them and vice versa? You honestly can't pick it. And again, that's what competition's about, isn't it? And that's healthy. You want people talking about your competition, going, well, it's great that you don't know who's going to win and by how much. You know what I mean? Great for Betfred because some of the odds they can put on for that would be fantastic. And which way do they go? Who knows? But what I'm saying is, it's a great competition to be involved in. And to coach a club. And a team at York is incredible. I think we've got a lot of really good things going on behind the scenes. We've got some really strong infrastructure in place and foundations in place, ready for that next push. If the opportunity presents itself, and that's what we're about at the moment. We're trying to do our best. We've got a lot of injuries at the moment that we've been contending with from the start of the season, but we're just trying to compete each week and try and create a level of performance that. That our fans are proud of, and then ultimately making sure we get our house in order and just keep making them small steps to keep improving from a performance point of view, but also improving with our off-field operations. So hopefully, if that big day comes one day, then we're equipped and we're ready to compete in the Super League.
You've had a great cup run, of course. You're going to get a shot, an opportunity to go and play at Wembley in the 1895 Cup. That must get the juices flowing as a coach.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great. I said that to the players actually last week. That we've not probably had the best start to the championship this year. We're 3 wins from 9, but we're still alive in all 3 competitions. We're still in the Challenge Cup. We're only 2 wins out of the top 6. Which is what you need to finish in the championship for the playoffs at the back end of the year, with 2/3 of the season to go, and we're alive and kicking in the 1895 Cup. We're in the semi-finals of that. We're 1 win from Wembley. So there's plenty of rugby league action ahead. There's plenty to get excited about, and we've got a fantastic opportunity. And I suppose the driver for me personally, and which I'll be trying to hopefully get across to the team, is how special would that be, going to Wembley. And again, with our women's team, the Valkyrie, very strong. They've got a very strong chance of potentially progressing in the Challenge Cup, the Women's Challenge Cup. To have 2 York sides at Wembley, wow, that would be amazing. And if we could both get results on the day, That would be special.
If you got in the semi, Hendo.
We don't know yet. It gets drawn in June. It gets drawn in June. So so there's 4 teams remaining. So there's Batley Bulldogs, Halifax, London Broncos, and ourselves as the last 4 remaining teams in that competition. So exciting stuff ahead.
We're running out of time, gents. It's been a pleasure talking rugby league with you. Just before we go, Moz, 1 marathon down, 1 to go. You're still walking. You're ahead of where I would be at this point. At what point in the first marathon did you start thinking about the one in Leeds and think, what am I doing here?
I've not thought about it until you just mentioned it, Dennis, but it was very, very tough. I actually got a cramp in both my hammies after about 30k, and it was a bit hard work after that, but I managed to finish in 4 hours 13, which still pleased, still an achievement to finish it. But for the Leeds one, I'm hopefully have a couple of anti-cramping tablets, and hopefully I won't be affected by a cramp. But that's going to be great. I didn't know anyone at the London one, but for the Leeds one, there's a number of ex-pros and current players doing the marathon. So hopefully it'll be a rugby league, carnival atmosphere, and Rob Burrow's wife's going to do it, and Rob Burrow will be there. So I'm looking forward to the Leeds one, even though it's going to be hard work. It's tough, but after this one, I'm definitely hanging my marathon shoes up. That's me done.
Well, look, it's an amazing thing you're doing for Rob and the MND community and everyone connected to rugby league and who is involved in that marathon in Rob's. In tribute to Rob and what he's facing, just fantastic that rugby league is doing this and coming together. Gents, lovely to sit here and spend half an hour or so talking rugby league with you. We've gone through all the games. I think all of us have pretty much sat on the fence throughout, so no use to anyone really. But great to be here. We'll be back next week, of course, right here on the Sportsman Rugby League every Wednesday night. The last tackle.